Hello everyone, welcome to today's new session. Today we are going to discuss about debugging JavaScript using Chrome developer tools. Let's see how we can do that. I have already set up a sample project here with an index.html file and a couple of JavaScript files. I will explain how to debug a JavaScript using these files. In the HTML file, I just mentioned welcome to my page text, and then I linked a couple JavaScript files. The code inside these files is I use some variables and then a function here, function hello, and it's just random. I'll explain while we are discussing about debugging. Okay, so I have these criteria which I am going to fulfill in this session. Let's see the first one. It says use console errors to find bugs in JavaScript code. Okay, this is nothing but if there are any errors in our JavaScript code, sometimes we use console. We can see those errors in the console. Let me show you how we can do this. Okay, now if I open okay, this is the file we are working on. Let me give a title and then we can understand. Chrome dev tools. Let me save and try to refresh. See, the title is here. Okay, in this page, if we want to see the console errors, we have to first open the dev tools. For this, right click and click on inspect. Right here, sometimes we don't get this one. If you don't see the console here, you can select console in here, and there are sources, network, everything. But today we are going to mostly look into console and sources. Okay, in the console, how do we see an error? To replicate an error, I'll show it in couple ways. For example, in the scripts.js file, if I do not initialize this variable b, let's see what happens when we refresh the page. When I refresh the page, you see this error, uncaught syntax error, missing initializer. That means we did not initialize a constant variable, which is a constant. So if we initialize this to some value and save it and refresh it again, we don't see the error because the value is initialized. Okay, let me close, select this to take off all the confusion. The next criteria we are going to see is set and watch breakpoints in JavaScript. Okay, for this we are going to use the debugger. Let me explain you how to use the debugger first, and then we'll see how we can set and watch breakpoints in JavaScript code. Okay, to learn about this, here in the dev tools we got to select the sources tab. In the sources tab we can see all the files used in this project, and let me take off all this. I'm sorry. Okay, this is the scripts.js file here. Let's see how we can set a breakpoint. It's a very easy way to set a breakpoint is you see the line numbers here. We have to click on the line number where we have to set a breakpoint. A breakpoint is nothing but when we are executing this code, the execution stops at that particular line. So if I want my execution to stop at line 5, I just click on the number on the left side. So when you see this blue color, the breakpoint is set. And now we refresh the page. You see the execution stopped right here. And now it also shows the value of the variables. It says x is 4. It's so cool, right? So now to continue this execution, there are couple buttons here. So the first button says resume script execution. What this button does is, when you click on this, the execution starts normally. If there are any other breakpoints in between the execution, the execution stops there. So for example, if I put a breakpoint here and I click this button, the execution stops there in the normal flow. For suppose if I put one more breakpoint here, which is in else condition, what do you think happens when I click this button? Exactly, it doesn't stop there because the execution doesn't go into the else condition. Let's see, I'm going to click on this and it did not stop at the stop inside the else condition. That is what breakpoint, that is how we set the breakpoint. And look and watch the breakpoints in the JavaScript code. Okay, now the next criteria is set conditional breakpoints. To set a conditional breakpoint, it's nothing but like we give a condition, we tell a condition, and if the condition, like if that condition is met, the breakpoint is met. Let's see how we can do that. For example, let's take off all these breakpoints and I want to set a conditional breakpoint at this line, and I want the execution to stop here only if a condition is met. So to give the condition, what we have to do is, at this line we have to right click and then press add conditional breakpoint, and the condition the condition I'm going to specify here is my x has to be greater than 0, or I can give if my x is equal to 1. Let's see, if x is 1, this the debugger stops at that line. So there is a breakpoint only when the condition is met. What do you think happens when I execute this? Exactly, the debugger won't stop because the x value is going to be 4. Let's see, refresh the page. See, it did not stop at that point. And I give one more. Let's see if I give a normal breakpoint here and see if it stops at line 7. Okay, now if I refresh my page, see, the breakpoint did not stop, the execution did not stop at line 6, it stopped at line 7 because there is no condition at line 7, it's just a breakpoint. Now what if I change the condition? If I specify x equal to 4, as we know the x value is going to be 4, I just want to see if it's going to stop and try to refresh it again. See, the execution stopped at line 6. That is what the conditional breakpoint is. I think it's all cleared. Let me jump into the last criteria. It says demonstrate the difference between breakpoints in global scope and function scope. Global scope, I think you might have an idea about global scope and function scope. For example, the variables here b and x are global scope. The same variable x, whereas inside this function it is local to the function. So the x here is a local variable. I can show this in this scope tab. If you see here, let me put a breakpoint in here, and then a breakpoint at this location. Okay, let me try to refresh the page. So when the execution is at the line is at the function call, the look at the variable x has value 1. It's in the script. Script is nothing but it's like global, the script file. When I click resume script execution, it's inside this hello function where the value of x is 4. So it says the local value of variables x is 4, whereas the global variable x value is 1. Whenever the breakpoint is inside a function, the local variables get local values. When the breakpoint is in the global scope, it takes the values for the variables from the global scope, as I have shown here. That is the difference between global scope and function scope breakpoints. That is for today. Thank you.